we upstanding?
Thank you all, and welcome to the ordinary meeting of council for November 2021. Just a reminder that we are recording the meetings for the purposes of preservation and are making them available on Zoom because we still are operating in a COVID environment with limitations on the gallery. So the meeting recording will be made available pending any technical difficulties like we had last month with the minutes. With that, I'll hand over to Mayor Brad to conduct the meeting.
Thanks, Matt. We acknowledge the Barngarla people, the traditional owners of the land we meet on today, and their continuing connection to the land, sea, culture and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people within our community. The City of Port Lincoln acknowledges and respects the diversity of cultural heritage and beliefs within our community. As a council, we are committed to serving the best interests and needs of all people in our city, and we endeavour to discharge our duties conscientiously to the best of our ability. Thanks very much. Please be seated. Welcome to staff members, elected members, the gallery, people here for deputations tonight, and of course, Jared, the press. So we'll get straight into it. Item number one, we have Councillor Broadfoot, Councillor Rousell, Councillor Lind, Councillor Davis, Deputy Mayor Ritchie, Councillor Davies, Councillor Staunton and Councillor Dodd. And me. We have an apology from Councillor Peter Jolly, as he's unwell. Item 3, is there declarations of conflicts of interest? Is there any declarations tonight? I'll go from right around. Councillor Broadfoot.
15.1.1 around the road closure, perceived conflict, saying as Jack's still on the committee, so I'll stay in the meeting.
And vote.
And
Yep. Next one, Councillor Rousell, did you? No. Councillor Staunton. Oh, Jack, sorry.
Yes, 15.11 on the committee of the chamber and Christmas break for the pageant, and yes, actual conflict because I'm on the committee.
Okay, so you're going to declare and leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Staunton.
Perceived conflict 15.1.1 road closure is council rep on the chamber. Yes, so I'll stay there.
Perceived, and you vote. Yep. Any others? Jeff? Okay. Item 4 is the confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. The confirmation of the minutes of the previous ordinary council meeting held on Monday, the 18th of October 2021. Is there any discussion on that at all? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Davis, just want to speak on it, Fane. Second, Deputy Mayor Jack, want to speak on it, Jack? Speaks for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 5 is adjourned items. There are nil. Item 6 is questions with and without notice. There are nil. Item 7, item 7.1, we will defer until after the deputations. I'll bring it in straight after. So that's an acknowledgement from Deputy Mayor Ritchie on that. Item 8, petitions. There are nil. Item 9 is the deputations and representations. 9.1 is the MTC dance group regarding council sponsorship and assistance to attend the dance competition in Adelaide. Do we have a rep there from the MTC dance group?
Yes.
Do you want to?
Which is pointless because I've got a presentation.
Oh, okay. We're going to get there. Hang on, we'll just get your presentation up. So while we're waiting for that, I actually went with Councillor Davies to the MTC presentation the other night in the Aldous Art Centre, and I must say that it was bloody fantastic. Really, really good. And the reason I can say that is because I think I went to the first one 10 years ago, and it was a really good night. So well done, and I'll get it right.
If you just let me know when you want it.
Good afternoon. My name is Shajat Palmer. I am a student of Performance Crew 2021 and Union Performance Crew Coach 2021. I'm Lily Thackeray. I was a coach of the Junior Performance Career 2020, and I was a student in the Performance Career in 2020 and 2021.
Take your mask.
Take your mask off.
Can't
Yes,
be.
And a little explanation, because of COVID last year, we couldn't do our competition last year, so we carried on last year's routines and this year's routines. So we had 4 crews technically going to the competition.
Hi, I'm Ruby Kidney. I'm a student for Junior Performance Crew last year and this year.
Hi, Ruby. Order.
Thank you so much for sponsoring us this year. We really appreciate it. On behalf of the whole Performance Crew, thank you so much.
We'd like to share a highlight video with you just to show a bit about what we did at competitions. And that was made by one of our coaches and students.
Does it sound
Just very thorough. Amanda, I'm trying to catch up.
And our routines will soon be on our YouTube account as well anyway. So hopefully it won't be as many glitches if you want to watch it again. Are there any questions at all?
How did you go? Yeah, competition.
Yeah, we placed in fourth and both the junior performance crew, and fifth in one performance crew and second in the other performance crew. Technically, there were us and one other in that category though, but it was really wonderful experience just to get the feedback that we did and see the other crews. And it was the first time that our junior performance crew got to compete because last year cancelled, so that was exciting.
How many are involved in it?
This year it was 30. In previous years, I think the most in our gym was like 18 or 19, so this is a big year. First time we had to go over a class together, and we had to stay in the YHA in the city. So yeah, it was a big mission planning it. Well, that was thanks to Karen for that. So logistics are a lot.
Congratulations to all.
So how many were in the presentation the other night?
Technically in MTC, I think Ashley told me it was like 130 roughly people. Yeah.
Plus your visitors as well.
Yeah.
So,
Big family.
yeah, so it's a really positive, inclusive, like, huge numbers of people really doing some stuff, and not always young. But, there's a few oldies in it. It's good to see.
Yeah, we've got King D all the way up, so for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very well done. Okay, thanks for that, ladies. So item 9.2 is Miss Prapti Pai regarding council sponsorship for the YMCA Junior Youth Parliament. Prapti, would you like to come up and have a bit of a talk and tell us what happened?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. I'm Prapti Pai. I'm a student at Port Lincoln High School, Year 9. At the onset, I would like to start by thanking all of you who've helped me gain yet another great experience in my life. I was shortlisted as a candidate to represent my school and this beautiful city of Port Lincoln and the wonderful people. The city has helped me by sponsoring my journey and easing the financial load on my parents. I reached out to all of you and you have pulled your heart out to help me gain this experience. I would like to thank my school, Port Lincoln High School, our principal, teachers, our support staff, our Honourable Member of Parliament, and the Mayor and the City Council of Port Lincoln. I wouldn't be able to share all that I experienced in just a few minutes. The whole experience of a 14-year-old traveling for the first time alone to Adelaide, and let alone the experience of 3 days full of activities, fun, learning, and at the Great Parliament House. However, I'm going to try and present them in the most unstructured way. Day 1, my dad dropped me off at the airport, my mum anxious about my travel, alone, and me nervous, anxious, and excited to live and experience what lies ahead. I had managed to guide my way through the city alone and reach my destination, Ross Trevor College. We were greeted by YMCA volunteers and they showed us to our rooms, asked us to rest and get back at the meeting area at 9:45 a.m. We were briefed about various protocols and various programs that lay ahead. The first day was jam-packed with information. We learned many things, such as different levels of government, what they administer. We had a mock debate with our party leaders to prepare us for the following day. We had a great lunch and did a few more mock sessions. Post all our activities, the evening was made for us to meet, to get to know our co-participants. We sang, danced, laughed, and made friendships, which will hopefully last for the rest of our lives. The following day, we stood at the stairs of the House of Assembly, intimidated by the beautiful carvings. We went through security very carefully, as no ink items were allowed. I had mentally prepared intensely for this moment, practicing every word of my speech. The beeping of the metal detector pulled me out of my thoughts. A fellow participant had forgotten to give up their phone at the entrance, which led to a check by security. We were all mesmerized by the interior. We felt the history. I could almost imagine the honorable members debating and presenting ideas that have changed our lives forever. We had to rebut the voting accessibility bill. The bill opened up opportunities for people 16 and above to be able to vote, and proposed for a compulsory semester-long program to be implemented in high school so that voters are educated on their rights. Our May refuter had managed to figure out the flaws and crafted an amazing speech in a matter of moments. But when it came to voting for the bill, we all had our opinions, which allowed for the bill to pass. We presented our bill after lunch. We all came in feeling a bit drowsy after the extravagant lunch provided to us. As the main sponsor, it was my responsibility to wake up everyone and energize them for the STEM Education Act. Our bill proposed a more diverse curriculum, a STEM-based education. We had decided that funding would go into more rural schools and to provide specialized teachers for rural schools as well, to provide an equal opportunity for all. My fellow team members had presented their points very professionally, and I had the privilege to wrap it all up. The volunteers made us feel at home, at ease. We had a great time, eating, singing, dancing, every evening after Parliament. On my way back in the flight, till the time my dad arrived to pick me up from the airport, I couldn't stop the smile on my face, and have been sharing bits and pieces of the journey in every other context to my folks. I'm grateful to you all present here, and those who are not as well, who supported me and supported others like me to gain these experiences, which will forever be etched in our memories, and would help us build a better character. I have made new friends for life and would not have been possible without your help and support. I feel this journey has helped me be more confident and sure about myself, and has opened up opportunities to pursue careers in parts of which I was not aware of. The friendships I created during this time will enrich my life journey. I'm looking forward to Youth Parliament, and I'm eager to share my experience with all of you. Here's thanking you all again.
Is there any questions?
Sorry.
Is there any questions of practice?
Just one. It sounds like an amazing experience, but whether you, in one of those career options, you thought about going into politics.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Any more? Thank you very much, Brett.
That's very informative. We really appreciate it.
It's great stuff. I first met Prapti at the multicultural function. Oh, must be about a year ago, where she did a presentation there. It was just so good, I couldn't believe it. So now that I've embarrassed her, there you go. Please say hello to Mum and Dad. Okay, item number 10. There's activity reports. Is there any questions on that at all? Been a busy month. Yeah, I didn't think there would be one coming from you, Councillor Dave.
Let's try and ask two.
Yeah,
On the 2nd of November, there was a meeting with the RDA. Is there anything that was appropriate to share tonight, or if not, that's fine?
yeah, that was a pretty informal meeting, that one. We actually had lunch together, but basically it was again just reiterating where we are from the council point of view, where our priorities are, what's coming up with the foreshore and the like, and also drowning our sorrows about the BBF at that stage. It really was probably the last formal engagement that we'll have with Dion Dord as the CEO. The desalination plant is quite primary on what we're discussing as well.
And also to, on the 10th, the 11th meeting with Port Lincoln Yacht Club in relation to the stormwater discharge.
Yes.
Incident. that occurred.
Yep, so that was, there had been an incident where there had been a discharge about 3 weeks prior to that. During a Sunday afternoon when there were people using the beach, particularly from the yacht club, they had races and the like out there. JP has been interacting with the yacht club from that point on. The actual incident was reported to me by phone. Matt went down there straight afterwards, and we've been talking with him constantly through Matt and JP and his staff. And we've been doing some remedial work down there to deal with it. They rang us, and we actually met down by the yacht club last week whilst the stormwater was discharging, and we could actually see what was going on for ourselves. And JP is continuing on with a good fight in that area. So the thing is in the end, everyone was shaking hands and saying, "Yep, it's good to see that we're all here talking and listening."
That's right. Thank you.
And good work to the staff, JP.
Mayor Brett, 4th of the 11th, meeting with IDA, me itself, the CEO and Chair of SA Water.
Yes.
Can you expand on that meeting?
So basically, we had Peter Trelaw, Sam Telfer, myself, Dion Dord from RDA, the chairman of SA Water, and the CEO of SA Water. As a collective leadership group for the lower air community, we put forward our concerns regarding the location of the desalination plant, and we sought reassurances from them that the science would be substantially good enough that wouldn't impact on our industries. And I think the advice that we passed on in an informal way was that it would be good if we could have some sort of comfort within the science that you're producing. It would be good if we could see that the industries that may be impacted by this would be satisfied with your science and your construction proposals. And that's really about where we got to. I understand that they had a meeting with the industry afterwards, but I don't know the outcome of that. Anyone else? Oh, okay, we'll keep moving. Thank you for those questions. Deputy Mayor Ritchie, do you want to add anything to your appointment?
Nothing to add to that.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Councillor Broadfoot, do you want anything to it?
Just about the Health Advisory Council, the hospital is going to a salaried locum structure to bring doctors into the region after the local doctors pulled out of servicing the hospital because of a, I guess, a lack of support. So that budget will triple now that we're going to have locums as part of the mix. We had our AGM that we didn't get a quorum, we needed 15 people. So, but then we proceeded with the meeting. So yeah, it's an interesting space to be keeping an eye on really around what's happening. So full budget of 120 million, overspent by 6 last year, but now we're going to have an extra 6 in, or an extra 4 to 6 in doctor fees.
Can I ask a question? Surely it would be more cost effective to have salaried doctors in the actual hospital rather than locals, wouldn't it?
Yeah, one would think. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so there's some issues. You've seen the Woodner doctor has resigned due to just the way that consultation's not really happening well for the GPs. So we've just refreshed the team there, and we've got GP John Williams, Dr. John Williams, who's Vice President of the Australian Medical Association. So he's part of the Health Advisory Council. So we've just been looking to get some extra membership there so we can really activate that group as a key consumer voice between the Air Fund, Local Health Network Board and our community.
Just, do you mind if I just add a comment to that? I was listening to it, sorry. And I was listening to an ABC program the other day when I was heading up to Elliston, and one of the things that they've talked about here in South Australia is the fact that there is 1 in 10 who does a medical degree here in South Australia becomes a GP. 1 in 3 of those GPs come to regional South Australia. So it's quite telling, and there are a number of issues that have been flagged through a few programs on this. So it certainly is that, do you get a local, or do you invest in the local? And I don't think SA Health has actually got that right yet, but I understand.
A lot of people are specialising these days as well. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Rousell, do you want anything to do? You good? Okay, thanks. Councillor Lynn, anything to that, mate? Councillor Jolly? No. Councillor Davis?
Just to say that the MTC dance was absolutely incredible to watch. It was wonderful to see so many people upstairs plus downstairs in the Milgers Arts Centre, and to see such a range of people of all age groups actually experiencing being on stage. The lighting was fantastic. It was a really great experience for all sorts of reasons, for all sorts of people throughout the venue, whether they be a performer or a spectator. So well done to everybody, and also their volunteer team too. It's a great investment that this business has made in our community and utilising one of our local facilities.
Yeah, and my neighbour's mother and daughter were in it as well. So, yeah, really well done, guys. Thanks for that. Councillor Davis. Councillor Davis. Councillor Storm.
Yeah, just the Ombudsman OPI ICAC change due on the 20th of October and the Chamber of Commerce meeting 26th of October.
Thanks, Councillor Dodd. You have anything to add?
Yeah, there's a water workshop and council service standard workshop last week.
Thanks very much, Tara. Item 11, Chief Executive Officer, items for discussion. Do you have anything on that?
Just a couple of things. Just note that we'll jump back to item 7.1. So do you want to do that first?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, certainly. So we'll straight back to item 7, which is 7.1, Deputy Mayor Ritchie, SA desalination plant site selection. Jack, do you want to address us on that at all?
Absolutely. And, everybody's read the motion, and I think that's fairly clear. I guess that there's a few key elements within that. One is the support for a desalination plant on the Great Peninsula. The other is that while there's no guarantee of that there will be no impact on the fishing and aquaculture industry of the bay, and I don't see that council can support the venture. And also included in that is the option or the offer to support SA Water find a suitable location. That's essentially it. This has been going on since 2008. This is such an important thing. Water is crucial to the region, crucial to the communities, to the economy, every aspect of it. And it's my belief that the Peninsula and Port Lincoln deserve a sustainable, well-placed desal plant that doesn't have an impact on industry and the community. So that's the motion.
Thanks. So you're moving it, Jack?
I'm moving.
Okay. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Storm, do you want to speak on it?
Exactly as Jack mentioned, and certainly the most recent proposal of Billy Light's Point and the risk to mussel farms in particular that have been pointed out, given that we're declared the seafood capital of Australia, if we're risking our industry by having it there. And that's what we support, having a sustainable water source. Motion.
Okay, thanks. Is there any speakers for or against? Councillor Lynn.
I'd like to support it. I think it's a well thought through and well worded motion.
Okay, so any other speakers for or against? Councillor Dodd.
I'd like to support the recommendations and stands too, but I'm just wondering whether with no negative impact on fishing industry, there's no impact.
So that's the addition of the word negative, is it?
No, it's just taking, yeah.
We'll take it out.
No, we, oh, yeah. reduce.
Yes, that's a good,
You happy with that amendment, Jack?
absolutely.
Valerie? Okay, so we'll let it stand. Councillor Broadfoot, do you want to speak?
I'd just like to support the motion. I just, and also to flag with councillors that the industry and RDA have organised a Hands Off Boston Bay information event, which I reckon is about 9 o'clock or 9:30 on Sunday morning here on the foreshore. So yeah, and that includes industry. Dion Dorwood speaking at that, and there's science scientists are speaking at that. So if people are interested in getting more information, yeah, that would be a worthwhile event. I guess, and just to say that, yeah, I'm really frustrated with the lack of foresight of SA Water. This has been talked about for a long time, and I've known that the Yearly Basin is under pressure, and yet now we've got a last minute rushed project. And as we talked about at the information session, you know, the trust has been impacted for industry and the community, and as we represent the community, and definitely we want to support our industry. Yeah, I think we need to have a really clear position on it.
Okay, is there any other speakers for or against? Jack, you want to write a reply?
I think just to say that I think what is added to that the motion as well. I think that there seems to be a lot of agreement around it. It's not saying that SA Water's doing the wrong thing. If they're fixed within a budget to actually look at a solution, I just think there is a better option, and therefore want support the region and supply there as well to get the right solution in place. Certainly help. But at the moment, that's not the place to place it.
Okay. All those in favour? Motion carried. Thanks, Jack. Okay, item 11 was the Chief Executive Officer's items for discussions.
Can I just ask a question, sorry?
Yep.
Just further to that, so how is that then conveyed to SA Water? Does it sit just in our minutes, or is that?
I think probably
We will write that, Brad. So the wording there is advises SA Water, so it's an action.
Okay,
for
right.
you to understand.
Yeah, I was just, that's, thank you.
I'll write a letter and incorporate the motion. So,
Yeah, thank you.
we'll get to item 11. Over to you, Matt.
Just a couple of things. Again, desal plant's been taking up a fair bit of time over the last few months, particularly the last month or so, with some of the conversations and the various stakeholder engagements that we've initiated with various ministers around that matter as well. I just wanted to note, I believe we've got Kathleen Brannigan, who's a new staff member. So Kathleen Brannigan, like members you may not know, or likely will not know, but you will after tonight. So Kathleen's commenced with council in the role of project manager for master plan projects, and will have carriage of the foreshore project over the next 2.5 to 3 years, as well as some of the planning on the other precinct planning for CBD and also for the marina when we get to that extent as well. So welcome, Kathleen. You'll probably see a lot more of her in the coming months. Department of Transport, so just following up on previous conversations and conversations from the Tri-Council meeting. So I did meet with the department earlier in October, late October in Adelaide, and we do have a meeting set for the 23rd of November. So they're coming over, they're spending some time with DCTWA, District Council of Lower Air, and they're also here with us in City of Port Lincoln, and they've got a meeting with the mayors and CEOs of the three councils to go through some of those road fund allocation issues, the status of projects under the ROSI program as well. The COVID situation, so we've been spending a fair bit of time in the last week or two starting to rethink what we need to do in light of the border reopening on the 23rd, and there were a lot of question marks which I think have been clarified today with some of the announcements and releases that have come out of SA Health and Safehold. So we'll be working through that, but likely what you'll see from council's perspective is some business continuity planning process changes in terms of how we operate internally as a staff group. There will be some enhanced communication out with the community in terms of encouraging vaccination. So as it stands, I believe we're at 86% first dose vaccination, 70% second dose vaccination across the lower EP. So that's something that we'll be looking to get the message out there, particularly around those second doses. And I think that equates to around about 1,700 second doses we still require to reach the 80% double dose vaccination rate.
I'll just ask the question, have we heard anything from health within this lower area region as to what some of their strategies are?
Yes, yep. So what we like to see from council is assistance with promoting that vaccination rates. So the CEOs of the councils will now be having fortnightly briefings with the health network across the EP as we work through that. The updates that we've had from Health Network, we've also had a meeting with Paul Barr, Verity Patterson from SA Health, and a couple of the mayors and CEOs got together last week just to talk around some of the planning at a local area level. The Health Network is obviously going through its own process of trying to allocate its resources into priority areas as we look towards borders reopening. I guess the key things are vaccination is the first line of defence. So for everyone, we'll be talking vaccinations, and we will actually be promoting vaccinations. There'll be some video clips and a few things coming out in the next few weeks just to promote vaccination. The second line of defence is the mask wearing. So again, taking a leadership role in the community promoting mask wearing. And the third and final line of defence is the health system. We don't want to get to the point where the health system is the primary line of defence. Vaccinations and mask wearing are the two avenues we'll be pursuing there. So we'll be working through that, as I said, BCP, but also some community planning going on in terms of how we can best support the relevant agencies. The stormwater outlet at the yacht club, so we'll reflect back on the briefing session we had back in April around the stormwater management plan and some of those items. So we have got another meeting set for I think 8th of December now with the yacht club and also with Tonkin. We have a commitment from Tonkin to redesign the outlet, and we're working through that process at the moment. So as Brad said, we had a constructive meeting with the yacht club, and we'll have another meeting with the yacht club on the 8th of December as we work through what will need to be some changes to that outlet to get it to be functioning. Just want to also be clear though that what we're looking at with the rectification of the issues with the outlet, which is basically the failure of the matting, is we're looking for essentially a like-for-like replacement. So the concept will be the same. It will be a beach outfall. It won't be anything different. And that's on the basis of that's the decision the council made to implement through the project. So that's what we're looking to replace. If there is a discussion or a push or a desire to pursue other options, that's a secondary process. And that's much more of a longer term process. I think just to give you an idea on the potential costs, a solution which will fix the outfall, we estimate between probably $30,000 to $60,000 in infrastructure works. To look at different solutions like a submarine outfall, we're talking $700,000 to $800,000. So if we are to pursue that sort of an avenue, that will be a separate process, not just looking at how we treat the current issues we've got in there. Now, we will also be looking at configuration of the pumping system, because I guess part of the challenge we have there is the pumping system is a float system, and when the float gets full from groundwater ingress into the chambers, it turns on, whether there's a rainfall event or not. And that's, I guess, some of the challenges we're having when there's daytime activities going on. There's no rainfall event, but there is groundwater ingress into the chambers. If it hits that level, the pump will turn on. So I guess what we're looking at is some smarts and configuration around that, so that it's actually got some sensing the environmental factors. So if there is a rainfall event and it needs to turn on, it will turn on, but it won't just turn on because the float says it's time to go. So some of those things we're looking at longer term with the solution down there. Just also highlight that this week we have a team of 4 staff heading across to compete in the local government rural management challenge. So the team have call themselves the Port Lincoln Parrots, and they've got their little logo there as well. So they'll be heading off to compete against about 7 other councils in Adelaide this week, which will hopefully have some good outcomes there. And it is likely that the team will actually present the next council meeting on what they've presented as their pre-challenge task. So in a nutshell, it's teams of staff members from different councils around the state getting together. They're thrown into real world scenarios where they get 45 minutes to come up with solutions to problems. And then they're judged and assessed by university lecturers on how well they've presented, how well they've thought through, but also their teamwork in actually creating those responses. So it's not just one person creating a response, they're actually evaluated on their teamwork and their problem solving challenges in that. So the pre-challenge task that they have to complete before they get into the challenge is something they need to spend some time on. They've actually done their pre-challenge task on the gap between service levels, funding and expectation. And the example they've used is weight reserve, which is I think they'll likely come back and present to council. And it's about how technology and AI can be used to create service efficiencies and cost savings to actually start addressing those service gaps in the longer term. So quite an interesting presentation. I think we'll have it at the December council meeting. And the only other item just for information is there is 2 large funding opportunities which are likely to fall due. One is going to be early 2022, which is the Preparing Australia grants through the National Recovery and Resilience Agency, which are available for flooding risk mitigation, bushfire risk mitigation, and cyclone risk mitigation, which is less relevant to us. But we'll be looking at what we can prepare for flooding and bushfire risk mitigation projects. It is only open to a certain number of councils across the country, and we are one of those councils, so we really should be putting something in for those that funding, and we will work through that. And the other one is Building Better Regions 6. So we found out last month that we weren't successful with Building Better Regions 5 for the foreshore or for the library visitor centre project. In the feedback processes, we were advised that the foreshore project was a very highly scoring project, and it is likely that it would be considered very highly in Building Better Region 6 if it was resubmitted in some form for that process. So we are just at the moment going through what we can practically submit for Building Better Regions 6 with the foreshore project as an expanded scope. And that we don't know the details, but it's likely that the federal government will announce that shortly, and it's likely that they'll also give a ridiculously short time frame, like 24th of December, which is what they usually do. So we're just doing some preparatory work around that at the moment, without changing things up too greatly. And Kathleen will also be doing some work on that, as obviously being involved now in the foreshore and the master plan projects. So that's probably about it. Brent?
Okay, thanks, mate. Some good stuff there. And things will start moving, the wheels will start moving early next year, I know. Okay, is there any more questions of Matt before I move on?
Just one thing, who's on the Parrot team, and 2 Commonwealth rules are 25 days for minimum 25 days for procurement, so you'll have at least 25 days.
For the grant application, yeah.
That's a relief.
Yeah.
So the Port Lincoln Parrots, so we've got Gay Scholes, we've got Jasmine Schutz, we've got Christo Chiapelli, and Damien Wolford. So we've got a nice mix of people from across the team, which again is the idea of getting people from different parts of the organisation together. So they've got different perspectives they bring into the challenges, and they have to come up with a better outcome. That's the idea behind the local government professionals challenges, is really about building capacity experience of staff members at different levels of the organisation on how different perspectives actually help solve problems. because we all see the world from one perspective, and by bringing those perspectives together, we get better.
I think it's a great opportunity too, where they actually get to see and understand the skill sets that you all have and how you can draw on that too. We don't have to know everything as an individual, but you can certainly think, well, yeah, this is what I have, and see what others see, so they go to people. Which I think is really great. Very exciting.
Beauty. Okay, thanks for that. Item 12 is council committee reports and minutes. 12.1 is the confirmation of the minutes of the Eyre Peninsula Regional Assessment Panel meeting held on the 8th of November. Is there any questions regarding that at all? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Rousseau, would you like to speak on it? Have a second. Councillor Broadfoot, would you like to speak on it? Any speakers for and against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 12.2 is a confirmation of the draft minutes of the LGA annual general meeting held on 29th of October. Any questions on that? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Davis, can I have a second, please? Councillor Richard, sorry, Deputy Mayor Ritchie. And all those in favour? Motion carried.
I do have a quick question, but I'm just not sure if it's that item.
Yep.
Have we got something on EPLGA as well tonight? Or was this where it talks about the water task force and it's 2 members? Something that's in our paper, it's in our papers tonight, and is it EPLGA's got a water task force?
I didn't get to this.
I don't think we've got anything.
It's in the attachments for tonight, but anyway, I'll raise it later. There's just, yeah, there's only 2 people on it. One of them seemed Telfer, and I just wondered about when we've got water as a key issue, why, like potentially.
Through the chair, that was in the EPLGA annual report.
Oh, that's where it was. Okay, yeah. So I did. So are we moving that, or is that just for noting later? I can bring it up later.
No, I don't think there's a
Part of
motion.
the LGA.
So it was part of this, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's in
No,
the
it's
annual
financial,
report.
yeah, so it's goes with the annual report, it's a subsidiary.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, okay, so moving on, item 13, Chief Executive Officer's reports. Resolution status report that's been presented. Matt, do you want to talk on that at all?
No, reducing the rents and the funding deed for the LGRP has been executed today, so that one will drop off there as well. Other than that, I have to take questions or anything else to me.
So is there any questions regarding that? Deputy Mayor Ritchie?
Just one question was, if there'd been a response back, and I can say that the report there was around the RDA EP response to the letter we sent through to them about the renewable energy zone.
So there was a response circulated today, which we received on Friday, I think. So it wasn't. Okay. Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep. It will be circulated, yeah. So I've only reviewed a response from the RDA this morning. Yep.
All right.
So not in the agenda.
Yeah. I'm 6 hours behind on emails, I think so. Okay, we'll get to any other, yes, Councillor Storm.
Just in regards to my motion, waste reduction, in the status report. Initially, so there was a 2-part resolution when that was moved, and the other part has since been taken out, put into other planning processes. But that initial motion, and I think there might have been some confusion over that, the motion was requesting a feasibility study including green waste, recycling of bins. So I just wonder if that has maybe been misunderstood and put into strategic planning, rather like is a feasibility study something that could just be done and not have to be in a strategic plan?
Through you, Mayor Brad, what I'd suggest is we take that on notice and we come back and maybe provide a more comprehensive update on that resolution at the next meeting. If the feasibility related to the green waste as a service to the community then it would fall into the remit of the waste review that we've got the funding for this year as part of a review of the curbside collection and things like that. So I'm happy to JP to.
Through your chair, if I can just give a quick update. So we are doing some work in the background on this. We've had a meeting with the other councils, Tumby Bay and District DCLET, to discuss about green waste and the potential and the feasibility of it and so forth. So we are looking at engaging someone to do some of that work for us. What we've figured out so far is we're going to need about 1,000 tonnes worth of green waste and a lot of water and a lot of land. So, so we are getting closer to understanding exactly what's required to make it feasible and whether we have the volume. So it seems to be the volume of waste. And what we need to work through is how much of food waste and food scraps do we have as well that can contribute to that. So our stats say that we have about 400 tonnes worth of green waste at the moment, but that doesn't include the food scraps and so forth. So we are slowly working our way through it, and we will actually do a formal feasibility study. I'm not exactly sure on each strategy and how we're going to do that, but we'll work through that. But I guess to answer your question, it's not forgotten or anything like that. We are working on it. It's just I'm doing a bit of work in the background first, but yeah, when we have a formal sort of a bit more information, I can present it in the report. We'll do so.
Any other questions? All right, come on, Councillor Davies. Yeah.
I noticed the other day, somewhere, magazine, a newspaper or something, that the councils are actually at present not picking up waste on a regular weekly basis anymore. They're trying to actually make people themselves more, responsible for their own waste and to use composting and that sort of thing. So it's
Definitely something we could look into and consider. However, you've got to remember that it also encourages a lot of illegal dumping. So there's people that will do the right thing, but there's also adverse effect to do that as well. So, but when we get some sort of formal work done around this, we'll report it to council.
I think this was over in like the cities, because they're actually running out of space. It's like they've actually their hands are being forced. So it's just good to sort of take some knowledge from other people and forward think about our situation as well, if there is some productive and progressive outcomes with what they're doing. It would be great if you do.
Sure.
Councillor Stott, you got a question?
Just a quick comment on that, like in your studies and stuff like that, we're looking at ideally reducing waste, is, thinking upstream and whether it's.
I'm just going to stop you there. This is time for clarifying questions. Okay. When we move it, that's when you can make your statement for or against. Okay. So now I have a mover for the recommendation, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to speak on that? No, but a second. Councillor Davis, do you want to speak on it? No speakers for or against. Councillor Stewart. Yep, you don't want to stay what you were saying before.
In regards to the feasibility and the green waste, that sort of thing, I think in part of the motion about reducing waste, championing reducing waste, can just be an education campaign out there for the community. Just remind them to be mindful of how many bags of baby spinach would buy and not eat. So just a matter of the consumerism and reducing the waste in that upstream factor rather than ending up in landfill or having the cost of extra for rates and stuff like that. So if there's just some sort of promotion we can do that can prevent waste, would be ideal.
Okay.
Just through you, Member, I think we will provide a bit more of a detailed report, just summary of that and where we're at with a few of those waste items in December meeting. Given that one is one of the longer outstanding items in the action register, so that's quite relevant. In terms of process, and workshops. We said that we wouldn't do any workshops in December and January. But I suspect when we get around to February, March, we'll start the workshop cycle again. That's probably going to coincide with the time that we'll be engaging someone to do the waste management review as well. So I can sense that we'll end up having a workshop on these specific matters as well, which will be some more open forum to go through some of these discussions in an informal environment.
I think Tumby Bay and Lower Air also engaged in some discussions. Councillor Dodd.
Just a question, Jay, the solid waste levy and the funding that comes out of that from the state government. Seems like this study would be a Monty for grant support.
We are looking at different potential grant funding opportunities to support and help, but yeah, we still got to apply for it and see.
Okay. Is there any further statements for or against? All those in
I'm
favour?
going to close the debate. No, just to say, taking on board what Councillor Davies talked about, we'd also have to look at the Veolia contract and alignment. You know, if you looked at changing time frame, all of that would need to be part of the review. And the other thing is the motion that I put up about reuse, recycle education campaign last term and got knocked off. I might bring it back now. So now that everybody's thinking a bit more progressively, so I'll dust it off.
Forbidden me thinking progressively. Okay, thanks. All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 13.2 is a change of date of the December 2021 Ordinary Council meeting. Pretty straightforward, Matt, over to you.
No, Member Ed, as written, unless there's any questions on that.
No clarifying questions? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Dodd, you want to speak on it?
No.
Second, Councillor Lynn, you want to speak on it? Speaks for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried.
Same question.
Item 13, no. 13.3, council representation on the Peninsula Oldfax Home Incorporated Board. Do you want to speak on that, Matt?
No, Member, unless there's any questions on that, I guess it's really just for council's consideration on whether it's still warranted to have a representative on the AP Oldfax Home Board, or whether it's probably not as relevant as it maybe once was.
I think it's, I mean, you've got to remember that's one business out of so many, so I don't know what they have with me on the board. That was my question.
What was the question?
I was wondering why we were on the board. That's what the history was. So, councillor, you have a clarifying question?
No, I was going to move the second part, which the council note the resignation and that we not sought to make a
Okay, would you like to speak on it?
just very shortly on this, I suppose. I think that there are a substantial number of communities. This is community-based committee. It's certainly well represented, and from past experience, my understanding is it was very important at one given point in time that any making members considered that they wanted a conduit to the council. I think that they have that with the open door policy that both the mayor and the CEO and staff have, that to have a representative on this board is not necessary on a monthly basis. So we just put our doors open, provide them with the opportunity for deputations, to have open discussion with council. So I would be certainly recommend that we adopt that second part, that we do not seek to make reappointments.
Thanks, councillor Davis. Can I have a second, please? If you need it. Do you want to speak on it, Jack?
Yes, just to agree with those comments as well, and to say that I think that broader engagement with the aged care sector across all of those organisations is probably a appropriate way to do it, and work closely with that, rather than one person on one specific board within that as well. So makes sense.
Any speakers for or against?
Question.
Yes.
My question would be, has this organisation actually approached council and asked for representation? I believe it didn't pass.
I'm not aware that they've asked for re-representation at this point.
Letter from the council from them didn't indicate that, did it?
No.
No, it was just acknowledging the resignation of Jack and of Peter, and didn't go into. There was no request. So any other clarifying questions or speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 13.4 is the City of Port Lincoln 2020 and 2021 annual report. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Mayor Brad. Largely as read, just to note that the annual report is a statutory document, so there are requirements around the content that we have to put into the annual report. And it has been updated in terms of its format and its visual look, just to be consistent now with the new strategic directions plan and also the annual business plan format in there. I do note that we've had a couple of typos sent back to us by the elected members. We did put those in there to make sure that you were reading the annual report.
Well done.
So they'll be amended in the final document. It's endorsed tonight.
Can I just add one? I have actually attended CEO review committee meetings. I think there was one that I didn't, so.
I'll pick that out myself, actually. Is there any clarifying questions of Matt? Yes.
Well, just at this point, I'll bring up a question on notice to the EPLGA about the EP Water Task Force. So Mayor Sam Telfer and Peter Scott, and just ask for an update on what that team have been doing and whether or not that needs a bit more energy. I know everybody's putting energy into what's happening at the moment, but whether that's a good vehicle. And whether currently with that representation, seeing as Mayor Sam's looking at candidacy as well, so potentially into the state election, potentially it's a good time to have a look at whether that's a good vehicle. I'm just interested in how that's working, seeing as it's there, and we've got the issues with water security and air potential.
So we'll take it as a question on notice.
Yeah, just not to cause any issue, just to ask the question, see what's going on.
Yep. So we'll just put that to one side now. Any clarifying questions on the documents at all? Okay. No. Councillor Stewart.
Oh, just a question on the goal for sustainable environment. We did recently the Plastic Free SA partnership or something. Should that go in there, or is that since
Post 30 June? Yeah. So I guess the annual report's only up to the 30th of June. So I guess one of the things we'll note with the new alignment and the layout is that we'll be hoping to achieve a much more balanced scorecard across the 5 goal areas in the coming 12 months as well. So, but basically anything that's post 30 June won't be in the annual report.
Okay. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Dodd, would you like to speak on it?
So it's well presented statutory document.
Yeah, it's easy to understand. And can I have a second, please? Councillor Davis, would you like to speak on it?
Well done, and thank you to the staff, also the elected members for their input as well. So thank you. It's to me a very exciting document. I enjoy reading it. I found it very informative too, and it's in great layman terms. So it's a readable document.
Yes. Any statements for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Well done to the staff. A lot of hard work. And thank you again for the fact that it is clear. Another part of our structure there. Item 14 is the corporate community reports, finance and businesses. Over to you, David.
Thanks, Mayor Brad. And over to Bonnie, who's here this evening to answer any questions you may have.
Don't feel you have to. Yeah, so firstly, I apologise for not being here to adopt the annual financials last month. One of the technical issues, but yeah, sorry I couldn't be here either. Budget forecast 1, adjusted operating surplus. We're basically sitting pretty well when you add our bags back in. Grants Commission funding, sorry. We're sitting at an adjusted operating surplus of 0.44%. So we'd started at -1.1 was what the budget was adopted at. So yeah, we're actually sitting pretty well. That mostly is, we got $109,000 for additional supplementary funding from the for the roads, and also the original budgeted amount that we had for our grants commission funding was actually about $149,000 better off when we actually got the exact figures, which is really good. Yeah, so there are obviously some, you know, ins and outs, and what is it, $1.9 million worth of WIP that we've rolled over, or in the capital works, which made the you know, has made a huge impact to the cash flow statement and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're looking pretty good at the moment. So if the boys and the crew can keep not spending any money, that'd be really good. So all your decisions need to be, you know, free, and that's the bottom line. But are there any questions?
Let me just see you with the quick.
Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, just in the capital projects, including work in progress.
Yeah.
On the road reseals, they've just gone from $750,000 to $1.5 million.
Yep.
Does that indicate that no reseals were conducted last financial year?
Yeah, so we signed the contract, but we couldn't get the contractors in until July, August. So that, yeah, we didn't get any of the capital works done last year for the road reseals, but it will all be done this year.
So just further to that, what's the reasoning for such a late contract negotiation?
Resourcing issues and performance of particular individuals in those areas, and COVID in terms of availability of contractors. So a range of internal matters
That have been fixed.
that have been resolved.
Very good.
Okay, is there any other questions of Bonnie at all? Can I have a mover then, please? Councillor Davis, and would you like to speak on it?
No, just once again, thank the staff for the incredible amount of work, and the information is informative and it is readable, and it's really good to have staff in the chamber to answer those questions, but also share the information. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Richie, you want to second it?
Just to say, yeah, good result.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or statements for and against? Councillor Davis.
I might just like to take this time to actually say to Matt, it's really refreshing to see things that are moving on, because we did go to a bit of a standstill, and it's I think we'd have to point it to his leadership. So well done, Matthew. Good timing. Performance review coming up.
Thank you. No, I think it's an indication of an organisation that's gone through some significant change. I think resourcing, we're still not quite there yet. I think we've got a good team with good people. We've got a few gaps that continue to plug. We've got a new manager of civil coming that's going to support JP. We're hoping to secure a new manager of open spaces to continue to support JP in those areas where we've had some gaps. We've got Kathleen now coming on board in the projects role. So we are hoping we're going to hit 2022 with some consistency and some optimism around delivering. And we've also managed to pull in some support staff like David Mosel to continue, even though we aren't fully resourced, to continue on with some of the projects that we've had peppering away, like the fire escape for the Nautilus Arts Centre, things like that, which have been in the budget for a long time, just getting them out of the way. Because we are still trying to work through last year's capital in some areas, as well as this year's capital. So it is purely down to resourcing a lot of these issues, but we are seeing a lot of the tunnel. That's the main. So, but thank you. That's good. It's the team's acknowledgement.
Councillor Dodd.
Just further to that, how's arterial progressing? Is that one of those that's still on the back burner?
Art area is progressing, so it is one of those that's on the back burner, only just on the back burner. So it is ready to go to market, and that will go to market in, if not December, will go to market in early 2022. So the other, now I sent an email to the elected members around some staffing changes in an update last week. I alluded to almost like a mid-year update. Now I would have hoped to get that to you. We'll look to get that to you in December in terms of a full update on all the projects, so that all these answers you've got before you.
So, any other statements for or against? Move it, please. No, we've done that. All those in favour? Motion carried. Sorry. It's all right for you guys, you can see what's going on. Good morning.
It's funny.
Always refreshing.
I wasn't at work today and I still feel alive.
Item 14.2, people governance and communications, there are nil. 14.3, community culture and recreation, there are nil. Item 15, environment and infrastructure reports. 15.1 is civil assets and operations. 15.1.1, road closure, Port Lincoln Chamber of Commerce and Tourism, Christmas pageant. Jack, you've got a conflict, haven't you? Rightio.
And I'll just repeat my conflict. I'm no longer on the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. It's just too difficult to give in some of those areas. And I don't even want to go to the Christmas pageant either. Sorry, colour. No. So anyway, but I've got a perceived conflict as Jack's still on the committee and dedicates his life to these things.
Okay, thanks. And Valerie, you've got a perceived
Yeah,
conflict.
perceived conflict as council rep of the chamber, leader of the Christmas committee, and lover of all things Christmas.
On the Grinch.
I will stay at the movie.
So JP, do you want to address the report at all?
Yeah, sure. Just under the Road Traffic Act, temporary road closures has to come to council for approval, and in the recommendation, there's a list of the areas and the timeframes that we're recommending to enable this event. So
It's a great.
I'll take it as one motion. Rob, you want to?
I was just going to move it, that's all.
Is there any questions? No? Okay, councillor Rousseau, you want to move it?
I'll move it.
Want to
And
speak on it?
it's very straightforward and easy to see, so yeah,
One.
well done,
Right.
organised again.
Can I have a second, please, councillor?
I was crossing my fingers.
Oh, can I have a second, please? Councillor Lynn, do you want to speak on it?
I don't think it's a great idea because down the track I'll be bringing a rerouted Anzac now. It's going to be on the same route, so it's a great precedent. That's not to say that even come to that stage. Down the track it was.
Is there any speakers for or against? Questions? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Would you ask Jack to come back?
It's just like.
Oh, my God. Yeah, tell me that. And then they come up with something else.
Jack, the motion was lost. Oh, no.
Oh, that's- Can you get this off the ground?
Motion was carried.
Crossing fingers.
Yes, absolutely.
Grinch at Christmas Eve. Item 15.2 is open spaces. 2.1 is playgrounds, property management. JP, over to you.
thank you, Chair. So this one, again, relatively straightforward. It's just a current process or policy that we've reviewed, and there's been some minor changes made, and in the Parks and Playground guidelines, we've just aligned it with the originally adopted open space strategy, so that the strategy and policies, they talk to each other. Not very exciting changes in there, but yeah.
Are there any questions of JP? Councillor Storm.
Yeah, just in regards, I'm not sure on Australian standards, but in the policy, has a disability inclusion and reconciliation action plan been considered in those standards, and in providing, because I don't see any wording around abilities or for those with special needs, whether that can be incorporated or it is in the standards.
It's in the standards, but if you feel, we could probably include some wording in there to be better.
So the Australian standards.
Australian standards will include that, absolutely. Yeah.
You don't want to replicate.
And also it's just under the open space strategy as well, which
Yeah.
has references to the disability access and inclusion plan.
Some of it's covered.
Yeah, so I think it's covered, absolutely, but yeah.
Just to bring to attention with Kathleen and JP here that one of the things that's come up is the microplastics that are shedding from the ground, the softball on the old playground down here. And so Juna presented on that when we went to their board meeting, I think last year. So anything that we're looking at in new playgrounds, we need to avoid that stuff that ends up in little tiny balls in the beach.
So I don't disagree with it, but it should be a question.
Yeah, and so can we make sure that we don't put any of that stuff in any of our new playgrounds, please? Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so you have another
Yeah,
question?
just further to my question, I wonder if the disability action plan, reconciliation action plan should be in the related documents. In the policy.
So is there a modification to the recommendation
I think we can just take it that that'll be
in there?
added in.
You're okay with that? Okay, all right. Move, please. Councillor Broadfoot, do you want to speak on it? I have a second, please. Councillor Dodd, would you like to speak on it? Statements for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 15.3, Development Services Flood Hazard Mapping Code Amendment. Over to you, JP, again.
Thank you, my Brad. So again, this one is just a letter received from the Attorney General's office. Following what they proposing to do is they've got in contact with our staff, and we are sharing some information to make the policy, the information on the flood hazard data better, so that it can improve the decision making and make the process a lot more streamlined. Currently, how it is it's a very blanket approach, and we've provided some of the flooding data that we've got through conference with them that will help inform better decision making. So it's really for council to know that we are sharing some information with them, and then the code amendment will reflect that information to improve the process.
Good question. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, has there been any impact of the LiDAR mapping being made public? I know it's buried in the website now, but essentially Sapphire Waters is underwater. Has there been any impact, like with people knowing, and is that, I guess, a bit of a role that we've got to make sure people have got access to that information?
Let's take that on notice.
Take that one on notice and come back to that, yeah. So my understanding is some of that will be incorporated into this process, but this is also in relation to us handing over all the modelling that's been done through the stormwater management planning process.
Yep.
So the accumulation of all that flood data as well. But in terms of the LiDAR, let's take that on notice.
Yeah, because it is there. We did get shown at the SA Coastal Council meeting how to get to it, but it's, I think they've deliberately sort of buried it.
I haven't heard anything from you. I haven't personally heard anything.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, JP, will council have an opportunity to look at the draft code amendment before it's finalised?
Again, I'll take that on notice. I'm not exactly sure on their process, and whether they sort of just let us know FYI, or if we have an opportunity to feed into it. I will take that on notice.
So you happy with that?
Yeah.
Right, any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a slightly different process this time around because it's a statewide code now as opposed to local planning overlay. So I suspect that it won't be a direct consultation with us. It will likely be a consultation that's open to all councils at the time, but we'll confirm that.
Okay. I have a mover, please. Councillor Storm, do you want to speak on it? Second? Councillor Broadfoot, would you like to speak on it? Any speakers for or against? Questions? All those in favour? Motion carried. Item 15.3.2 is a foreshore project governance. Over to you, Catherine, and welcome, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
JP, you're gonna
Catherine, I'll throw over to you if the different questions come up. But fundamentally, the report is to look at the governance structure that we're proposing for the delivery of the foreshore project. And We've revisited the idea of the concept of a project board. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, that the project board would stand over an election, and as well as we looked at the logistics and the types of reporting and the different roles everyone would be playing, and fundamentally found that it would be a very redundant exercise. You go to a board and then say something and explain reports, et cetera, and then we'd have to come to council anyway, just purely because of the nature of the types of discussions that we would have to have. I don't think that there was a lot of examples when we sort of went through it that you would go to the board in isolation and not to council as well. So that redundancy, and as well as if it goes over an election, just thought we would revisit that idea of a project board. That's the fundamental big shift there. So in principle and practically everywhere in previous documentation where we've related to a project board or referred to a project board can be now you can just replace the word with council. Other than that, the report sort of goes through the responsibility of council. So council will still have the strategic direction and the annual plan, the financial, and all the sort of big decisions that will come to council. And then there is a role for a project control group, which is effectively the executive. Matt will be, as the CEO, will be the project sponsor that will ultimately be responsible for the success or failure of the project. So there's then also different levels of tolerances of when we would go to which level of whether we'll just go to project manager and then dealing with it at an officer level, or when it will go to the PCG group, or when it will go to council. And so the report's got those tolerances mapped up in the back of the report. That's it in a nutshell. Sort of, it's still a tiered structure. It's still a hierarchy and an escalation process involved, with certain triggers of when it will go to which level. Yeah, that was fundamentally it. That was the main changes there from the project board to council. And then trying to explain some of the roles and responsibilities in that governance structure and how that will actually play out.
Is there any clarifying questions?
Just given the sorts of things we discussed at the project management board level for the leisure centre project, and given some of the issues we had there with liquidations and things like that, I guess at what risk is there that that council are left out of the loop if there's issues like that arising? And so what would be the red flag for notification to make sure that, just to make sure that people are in the loop? Because there was a lot of things that came to that board that would, be worked through. And I guess that kept that whole thing accountable, and we had some insight into what was going on and to help get things to keep moving. And I'd be interested in David's comment on that potentially as well, so having had that continuity through that process.
I guess just before we have David to provide some feedback on that through you, Mayor Brad, probably the difference here is the scale of the project. And I think with the leisure centre, that was effectively one large project with one contractor. I think the revised approach here, and this is where it's changed a little bit in the thought process, is when we look at the foreshore project, it's effectively 5 smaller projects. So rather than having one head contractor or managing contractor across the lot, we will be managing that ourselves. And then within that, we will have smaller subcontracts for different components. And if you think of it in the context of jetty, playground, activity zone, car parking, bitumen, landscaping, construction works on a toilet, and then paving, landscaping, and seaboard is paving and landscaping, as far as I'm concerned, really. So to have a head contractor managing that, reducing the risk of the sort of liquidation event or something you're talking about in that regard. So that's less of a risk if you're dealing with small contractors. It also gives us a little bit more compliance with the IPP, with the industry participation process, in terms of we'll be more strongly connected with the local contractors who will be delivering the work, as we'll be responsible for that. So I think from that perspective, we don't have that same level of risk where we've got one contract worth, you know, $6 million or $7 million being fiscal liquidation and being removed from that. So I think there will be more involvement, and obviously I'll be involved in the monthly meetings as a CEO, so I'll have oversight of that. And then any risks that we have that needs to escalate up to council with any of our operations, then it's incumbent on me to still be reporting.
Yeah.
Happy to.
So we've discussed that quite a bit in depth, certainly at the exec level, and that was also the sort of outcome. This is with the leisure centre. If council was a bit more removed, and the board took that role, and we only reported to council as and when we thought that was necessary. Whereas the feeling is with this project that we are going to be reporting to council on a far more regular basis, and there's going to be far more direct involvement with the whole executive. So we're making up the PCG group, whereas before there wasn't as much direct involvement of that sort of structure. So on that basis, we thought, you know, the point is this, is that we will be coming to council more effective as if that was the board role, and therefore we reduce that duplication. And then given the decision that we said, we believe that is the most effective way to go, is breaking up these components also lends to that type of reporting to council. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Through you, Mayor Brady, maybe you could give me a bit of clarification around the fact that I'm looking on page 47 and 48 is the reporting tolerances, and I certainly appreciate the structure that you have in place, but I'm hearing also the CEO saying that there is virtually 5 projects in amongst the whole project. So when I look at the cost and the budget construction and look at the reporting tolerances, the project group, when there is an overspend or there is a change of up to $50,000, they make the decision, but it then jumps to $250,000 if there is a change, it does come to council. So noting that there is we're talking 5 smaller projects, do you see that jump bigger, or should it be that last step for the blowout to come to council? Should it come sooner? Is it you're looking at $250,000 on individual components of the project, or the overall? Where do you then call if you're doing components of it in a staged manner, where blowout will be at 250? Now, am I look? I could have the wrong end of the stick here, but a little clarification might help me to understand a bit better.
Yep. Happy for me to take that?
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of this information came from the original signed off acquisition plan that we originally had, and it was aligned with delegation authority. Yep. That doesn't mean that we won't be reporting to council or advising council of what is actually happening. So if there is, but these are in terms of the entire project. So in context of the whole project, that's where those sort of numbers were pulled out from.
So if there's an overspend of $50,000, the group will make that decision, but there's a long way between $50,000 until it gets to $200,000.
Yeah, I think we can definitely change the wording because it's the scale. So it's between the 50,000 to 250, where you know, I think we would need to probably. I see what you're saying. So we need to change probably
and is the greater than
some symbol in there, so that it is more clear. But
it is an overall smaller value.
Yeah, I think the key thing here is that we will have the mandatory minimum reporting requirements that will come to Kathleen, and I will be here talking to council at a minimum and giving you an overall picture of exactly what's going on and what we've done and where we're heading. So it's about looking backwards of what we've achieved and what we've done and what we've delivered, and also looking forward and what we're planning to do moving forward. I'm feeling very confident that now that, you know, us as the executives in that PCG group, that we will be more involved in the actual day-to-day activities and so forth. We might not be managing it, that's what Kathleen's here for, but we will know, and we will use our discretion to know, okay, no, hang on, council needs to know about absolutely 100%, and we will take the appropriate action to make sure you're informed.
Councillor Davies.
I actually feel quite comfortable with that, considering the keywords that I've heard here.
Question. Questions.
I'm sorry. I'll just hold this
Yes.
statement that I'm making.
Good. Okay, we'll come back to Councillor Dodd. You got a question?
I have a question. Do you think your regularly quarterly status reports will be sufficient? Or is there some exception to bring in a report within quarterly report?
Well, I'm hoping that we can rely on that, minimum time we can pull a council meeting together if there is something that really, hopefully Kathleen will make sure nothing goes off the rails. So yeah, quarterly should be fine, but if there is a problem, we will absolutely call a meeting when required. So.
The other side of that question is the public consultation and update on communities and progress and what's happening in timeframes or Gantt charts or some form to keep the community up to speed, because it's going to be a major project in most focal point of the city.
Absolutely. So the communication strategy and plan is what Kathleen is working through as well. So we will come to council with explaining how we would attempt to, meet those requirements, because it's various stakeholders, there's the community, there's councils, but there's also, particular interest groups and so forth that have to be consulted and informed. So we will work through that through a communication strategy.
Okay, any other questions? Can I have a move, please? Councillor Davis, would you like to speak on it?
Very happy, thank you.
Okay, second, Councillor Ling, would you like to speak on it? Okay, can I have statements for or against? Now you can go your hardest.
I do. I feel quite comfortable after that explanation from the staff here tonight. And keywords that I've taken hold of are local contractors, that to me is a win-win. Community consultation along the way. I don't feel that council elected members need to hear of only risks. It would be nice to actually hear of progress as well, the negative and there won't be any positive or negative. So we'll be able to hear the positive progress along the way. So I feel comfortable with the decision.
Thanks very much. Any other statements for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thanks. I like the table. Item 16 is confidential council committee reports and minutes. The confirmation of the minutes of the Chief Executive Officer Review Committee meeting held on the 1st of November. Is there any questions on that at all? Okay, can I have a movement, please? Councillor Broadfoot, do you want to speak on it?
Just to say that everybody should have their paperwork, and it's really important that we get that back on time, because we're going to get that process ready in for the next council meeting. So if people can do their homework, that'd be great.
Very well said. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Ritchie, sorry, Deputy Mayor Ritchie, I apologize. Yep, do you want to speak on it? No. Thank you, Dave. Speakers for or against? All those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you. Good point. Item 17, confidential reports. There are none. Item 18, the next council meeting will be on the 13th of December. Because we had a motion on that tonight. Item 19, the meeting is closed. Thank you very much for your attendance and your input tonight. It's great to see such a positive approach to the future of our city.
Thank you.